Yeah. What's up? What's up, my people? Today is the 10th of September 2022. The Conversation Continues series, chapter 2. The first chapter was the earlier ones, then we've taken a break, and now we are back with a new bang, the new way, the new style. So if you go on page 141, my people, we're gonna knock down another poem. Poem titled Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome. So those who have done a little bit of psychology here would know what Stockholm. I haven't read this poem, so I'm just trying to pick up from what I know. By association in captivity, then you begin to see the good of being in captive and something like that. Kind of like you. Let's get into the poem and see. Let's get into the poem and see. They still support him, even though he devastated their farms. When his soldiers took away their cows during the wars that he waged, they still support him, even though his policies led to the closure of their businesses. They still support him, even though he implemented the flawed privatization policy through which his cronies and himself took over profitable government entities without paying a cent. They still support him. Who? That's the question now. Victor, tell me. Because we're looking at, in terms of support, probably the president. But this all comes down to now who are the enforcers of, you've got instruments, you've got the constitution, you've got the ministerial positions. These are all key decision makers in terms of a government. Simple. So, are people supporting the president, or are the people supporting policy frameworks? Or, you know what I mean? So, this to me looks like party politics. I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative, all ndiwa NRM. So, chintu chaffe. So, does it mean that if I don't support NRM, I don't benefit? Tell me, you know what I mean? You have to ask these questions. So, but why are the people still supporting him? In my context, him, I would say the party or the system of governance, whoever is on top of it, it negates everything. You see? So he goes further to talk about policies that led to the closure of businesses, and he nails that further with privatization policy. This came under the SAPs. Those who are not familiar with this is in economics. It's called the structural adjustment programs. So that means limited state funding in terms of public sectors, and then you introduce private initiatives. So you're offsetting that responsibility. Say in terms of education, in terms of transport, in terms of health, you know. So if you privatize education, that means you have the private sector coming in. But the motive is always profit for the public. Good. Where do they benefit? See, let's proceed, you know what I mean? They still support him even though he raised their rent tenfold, having allocated their rented prime properties reclaimed from the departed Asians custodian board to shadowy returnees. So you remember in 1972 we had the excommunication of the Indian Asian community in Uganda, and then we had the custodian board set up, blah blah blah. to oversee their properties and interests in Uganda. Then a policy comes in place to return the properties and everything, but then you have shadowy people being the benefactors of everything. So the question now is, was all this institutionalized in a form of corruption, so that unless you're within, you wouldn't have any way of being? But who are these returnees? How are they validated? All those are questions. Let's continue. They still support him even though he liberalized the health sector, forcing patients to make a contribution to their treatment. They still support him even though medical treatment of connected officials is state-funded in foreign hospitals through secretive approvals by an equally secretive medical board. Those who are familiar that usually what is happening is officials are taken abroad for medical treatment. Usually what happens when they are critically ill, they are flown out of the country. Does that leave a lot of questions? Of course. But then the irony Victor is presenting here is that the people still look on to that, but still support him, in quotes. So what's going on with the people here? Are they docile? Have they accepted a fateful situation to happen? Because on the question of account, if you say you have to pay for your health service, but then on the other side you have officials being flown out to seek treatment abroad. So you see the irony there. Let's continue to the next page. They still support him even though their children remain unemployed after completing their studies, because he issues cheats directing the hire of a select few. That's nepotism. Nepotism benefits a few. It sits side by side with patronage, because you patronize because you have the benefit of that access to navigate the political structures. So if I have my son and he has graduated, I only need to seek address with the president or with the minister or with who is who, and then they will write a cheat, and then my son will have it. A cheat is a small note, signed, approved for the job, and that's it. So these are all things that, if they're institutionalized, they're not held to account. So how do you evaluate results, potential, capability? They still support him even though their grandchildren are flogged and abducted for opposing his long rule. They still support him in their old age while they depend on their children grafting away in far-flung countries for financial support, while he ignores their ruined lives. So this would be similar to what is happening when migrant labor is exported to certain countries, and you hear the horror stories of abuse and things like injustices and all those kind of things, and it's come to fruition. You know what I mean? So this is it's an ugly affair. So if you invested in education for your son, daughter, and they've graduated with no job, and then they seek to go as migrant labor abroad, you know what I mean? Do you see the conundrum, people? So this poem, Stockholm Syndrome, is a symptom, it's a condition now that people have been positioned in, you know. Let's summarize the poem and then I give it a brief analysis. So, they are entranced by a captor that continues to hold them hostage. So, the Conversation Continues series is presenting the Ugandan Towers book by Victor Romanyika in detailed and synoptic analysis. So, the poems present situations that are pretty much validated by they are happening. You know, this is something we see at the airport, migrant labor being ferried out of the country on scheduled flights. These are things we are seeing. Education, private sector, UPE, whatever. Oh, you know, everything. There's the opposite of the other. So that means it's a smoke screen. You're seeing what you're seeing, but you are hell-bent. You wouldn't even have a say. And you accept the condition. And then you hear the tales of people saying, tunakola tutya, twabimanyira. You know, we are used to that. So that explains the Stockholm syndrome in the poem. So in terms of your understanding, if you read back to back, you get a different picture of what the poem presents. So the Conversation Continues series, my people. See, he's back with a bang, Kegus.